Today, I'm going to break down all of the new features in .NET MAUI Preview 13. The team has been working super hard, and I'm really excited to show off some of these new features that they've been working on and that I can't wait to use myself. Now, some of the improvements here are things such as making your apps smaller and faster, some brand new handlers to optimize those controls, and a real focus on the startup to configure your application and add a whole bunch of new awesome APIs with Essentials. So today I'm going to break it down from start to finish, so tune in. Hey everyone, I'm James, and I'm back with another .NET MAUI preview video, this time 13, whatever I ever do 13 with your hands, 13. Now, I gotta say that David was recently on the .NET MAUI podcast, which you can subscribe to. I'll put a link in the show notes below. He was mentioning that perhaps some RC bits are on our way, but we're not quite there. We have Preview 13, and it's packed with all sorts of good stuff. And the team has really optimized the startup of the applications. They've optimized the configuration, and even the templates are tuned and tweaked even further. So today, I'm gonna break it all down. Now, as always, David has a great blog post announcing the latest features, such as all sorts of new enhancements to label format text, brand new MAUI documentation, hybrid documentation for Blazor plus a .NET MAUI, and all sorts of other enhancements like new handlers for radio button, swipe view, and tons of control for the web view. Now, if you haven't checked out the docs, they're always being updated, so go and check those all out. All sorts of good things like graphics and controls and brushes and all sorts of beautiful things. But also, you can start building those hybrid applications with Blazor inside of your .NET MAUI application. So all sorts of good things here. I'll link to all the documentation that is here as well. Now, one other thing that David points out is this bootstrapping and focusing in on the MAUI program. And he kind of like highlighted this, and there's a lot of new things that are going on. So the first thing that I want to point out is that when you start your application, the main MAUI program is the entry point. So here, this is where the builder is created, configuration happens, and it builds it up. Now, thanks to an awesome community contribution, a lot of this was rebuilt under the hood and optimized for speed and performance, and making your app smaller. So a lot of new optimizations just when you upgrade to Preview 13. You don't have to change any code, it just happens automatically. Now, one thing that you'll notice here is that I'm creating a MAUI app, I'm configuring fonts, but there's a lot more that you can do. In fact, when you do a dot on the builder, you'll see that there's, yes, use MAUI app, but there's other things like configure animations, containers, effects, essentials, fonts, image sources. You can get access to logging, to services, and a whole bunch more. Now, you might be wondering, well, what is this Create Builder thing and what is it doing? Well, the Create Builder gives you a MAUI app builder. The goal is that you're getting a MAUI app back. So what is this builder and what does it give me? Well, the builder gives us things such as an iService collection for registering all of our singletons and transients for dependency injection, a configuration manager, and logging as well. So it's really nice that you can just get access to all that stuff. Now, let's take a look at some of these things that we have. So for example, animations are configuring our animations, cross-platform. We have effects if we're kind of spicing up existing controls. If you're using Xamarin Forms effects, you would configure them that way. Essentials, now I'll get back to that one. That's really exciting in this release. But of course, we have fonts, we have image handlers, configuring MAUI handlers, so actually overriding how the handlers work for displaying controls, and then the logging and the services like I talked about earlier. Now let's talk about Configure Essentials because configuring Essentials enables us to use over 70 plus native platform integrations cross-platform. So this is really nice as the evolution of Xamarin Essentials. So doing things like connectivity, file pickers, getting access to the camera, to just getting access to some nice methods like compasses and sensors. They're all built in. Now, you actually don't need to call this code if you don't need to. It's more for configuring Essentials. Since Essentials is built into .NET MAUI, there's nothing else you need to do. And in fact, in this release, the team optimizes it and configures all of the boilerplate code automatically. If I open the main activity, it's all registered for me automatically. Here, I don't have any boilerplate code for permissions or anything like that. It's all handled. Same with my app delegate. Nothing is here, literally 9 lines of code. My app XAML, same exact thing. Super minimal amount of code here to get my application up and running, which is super awesome to see. Now, what that means though, is that if you want to configure some of these more advanced essential APIs, you can come in and say configure essentials. And what we're going to do is pass in a little delegate here, a lambda. And this E for essentials, or whatever you want to name it, gives us sort of methods or properties that we can set. So for example, if I wanted to set a map service token for Windows, I can add it here. If I wanted to use version tracking, I'm using version tracking. If I want to come in and say, let's add an app action and pass it a new app action, which is like when you long press on iOS or Android and it jumps to that part of the application, I can say, oh, this is my ID, this is my title, and now I literally have an app action right there, which is super duper cool. Now, that's really nice to be able to automatically configure these advanced things. You don't have to figure it all out. It's all in one nice location. But what about different life cycle events? So for example, what if I wanted to come in and override maybe when the back button on Android is pressed or a window is added on Windows, for example? Well, we don't see in here .configure life cycle events like you would assume we would have. So if we were to do this, that's what we should get. But sure enough, if I right click and go into the IntelliSense, we can see that I can bring in a using statement of Microsoft Maui lifecycle events. And that's going to add extension methods. This is going to be something very common with .NET Maui applications, which is parts of libraries or NuGet packages that use this app builder to configure up and add on these different sort of startup code. Now, this is actually really interesting. If I do E dot, we have things such as add Android, add iOS, add Windows, but as you can see, it's only available on a specific platform. So that means we're going to need to conditionally compile our code. And we can do that with compiler directives. So for example, I can say pound if Windows over here, and we have all these different compiler directives here. Or if I was to say if Android or if iOS, they're all in here. And you can see that there's iOS 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, or greater right inside of here. But let's just do Windows, which means any Windows. And I'm going to say end if. And what we'll do is move this E up. And in this drop down in Visual Studio, I'm going to say, let's now look at the Windows. See how this lit up here? If I go to Android, it's not hitting this, so it grays out. So I'm going to go back to Windows. And now what I can do is I can do something like E dot. And we can see that I have an add event, I have an add Windows, and these are different lifecycle events I'm looping into. So here if I did Windows, I could then say, all right, Windows dot title, for example, or Windows dot on native message. And I could pass in args and different things inside of here and get access to these different lifecycle events. And then I could say app dot extends content into the title bar. And I could set that to false, for example. So there's all these different properties of Windows that I can set here without having to go in to the Android project, iOS project, or Windows project. They're all there for me, which I think is something that's really, really nice right here automatically. And I can just see what's happening automatically inside of the code. Now, the other thing to talk about is actually dependency injection. I talked about it a lot on the last Preview 12, but I wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit more and what the .NET Podcast application does and what you can do in your applications to register your view models, consume them, and a lot more. Now, one thing is when you're inside of this specific file, you have that builder, and you can do other things like do builder.services, and you can add a singleton, you can add a scope, you can add logging, you can add a transient, for example, and you can add these different types in your application that you might pull down later for dependency injection, which is something that's super duper nice. Now, one thing that I definitely want to show off is that inside of our podcast application, let me go ahead and just pin this up over here. We have some nice things. So for example, we can add our services. So here we're adding a singleton for our listen later. Here we can add a transient for our Wi-Fi options. And basically adding a transient means that it's going to create a new one every time it's called. A singleton is a single instance of it. So that's actually super duper nice. We can see that here. So for example, if I was to add a singleton for our, let's say, main page of our application, I've now just set up our main page to have a singleton, and it'll return the same instance of it every single time. You can also do add transient, right? So probably you'd want a new page, a new view model to be called up every single time. Now, the nice thing here is when you're using these builder services, you can do constructor injection. So on my main page, if I specifically put something into this constructor, like a main page view model, registered my main page view model, it would automatically figure out those dependencies and inflate them automatically for me. So that's something that's super duper nice. Now that's it. From a high level, those are some of the brand new things in .NET MAUI Preview 13. Of course, it is continuing its evolution, which is great to see. I'll of course put links into all of the different blog posts, documentation, and source code references that are out there as well. I hope that you're really enjoying these videos. And if you are, and if you've made it this far, one, I appreciate you for being here. And if you want to do me a solid, which I really appreciate it, is hit that like button down there. And what that does is it tells YouTube that you literally like this video, and it helps other people find this video through the YouTube algorithm of goodness. If you liked this video or any other ones that I put out here on my channel, super appreciate it. You could hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. That's going to make sure that you're notified every time I put out a new video. If you don't want notifications, that's okay too. They'll show up in your subscriptions feed. And as always, I really appreciate all of you. I love doing these videos. I do them all in my spare time. It's literally 7 o'clock here on 2/22/22, which is pretty cool. Now that I've dated this video, I really love it. But I hope that you enjoy it. I love answering all of your questions in the comments below, so feel free to head down there on any of the videos. I try to keep up as much as I can, only so many hours in the day. But of course, if you want to find me more and you're subscribed, don't forget that I also live stream on occasion on Fridays, usually around 8 a.m. Pacific, right here on YouTube. And I actually have a live stream archive. On the most recent live stream, I actually built a clone of Wordle, the popular trending word game, all in .NET MAUI, which is super fun. So definitely check that out. I'll put it at the end of the video if you want to go ahead and check that out. But again, thanks. Appreciate the likes, the subscribes. And until next time, I'm James, and thanks for watching.